report in the Wall Street Journal today indicates that Israel is in fact planning to strike Iran's nuclear sites, which would be catastrophic for the Middle East and potentially for the United States. Now, this would have...
All right, guys, so let's just go ahead and get into it, right? Like, I don't normally do this kind of topic 100% on this channel, but I don't even care because it's like, if we're waging, I don't care if it is Israel, it's us, waging war on Iran, then I should talk about it, right? So let's go. It's ridiculous. Like, let's go ahead and listen to it. Extraordinary.
Of course, lead to a massive escalation of war in the Middle East. And here's what we know about this so far. So U.S. intelligence basically had already concluded in the final days of the Biden administration that Israel was planning to strike Iran's nuclear sites. Now, they perceive Iran as significantly weakened as a result of the ongoing war on Gaza, the war that also spread to Lebanon briefly. And so
that's called a genocide in Gaza. That's what that is, straight up and down. I'm sorry. You just don't bomb people from the sky like that and think it's normal. It's not. I believe the numbers are now over 600,000. Come on, man. Like, please. And for what? For what? All this waste of life. It's sickening.
So because of the weakness of Hezbollah, because of Bashar al-Assad, essentially being ousted from power in Syria, all of these, allies to Iran have been weakened. All of these proxy groups, they've been weakened. So the idea that Israel has right now is, if we're going to strike, now is the time to do it. But they might be underestimating the military capabilities that Iran has, because they might be mistaking, Iran's unwillingness to really fully retaliate against Israel for everything that's happened in this war as weakness. But we don't really know whether or not Iran is really weakened to the point where Israel could just easily strike their nuclear sites and face no blowback whatsoever, or little blowback from Iran. So we're going to get to the details on that in just a minute. But the intelligence analysis concluded Israel would push the Trump administration to back the strikes, viewing him as more likely to join an attack than now former President Joe Biden.
It's coming from the Wall Street Journal, right? And so this is what I mean. First of all, okay, shout out to Anna Kasparian for even covering this story. I don't know how far this will move on this channel, and I hope it does. But, this is exactly what I mean. We have something called an Israel lobby here that is so powerful that they get their way. And if y'all think that, what are you saying? You're talking about what? There's a conspiracy. No, there's a book. Okay, it was more than a book, but people have talked about this. And I'm sorry, watching Trump pull out the chair for Netanyahu does not make me feel like we have any kind of like pushback to Israel. I'm sorry. It was in our faces. So if you don't know by now what's going on, if you can't see what's going on by now, then you just choose not to pay attention. And that's on you. But it's not on everybody else.
Now, Joe Biden was terrible on the issue of Israel. We didn't give him much credit because he didn't deserve much credit. One area where he appeared to pump the brakes, at least a little bit, was this notion that Israel should do strikes in Iran, specifically when it comes to their nuclear sites. Donald Trump, though, in the lead up to the presidential election, made it clear that he felt totally comfortable with Israel striking the nuclear sites within Iran, but he has kind of changed his tone a little bit. Now, back in November, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz argued that Iran is more exposed than ever to take strikes on its nuclear facilities. We have the opportunity to achieve our most important goal, to thwart and eliminate the existential threat to the state of Israel. So U.S. intelligence then went on to produce a subsequent report in the early days of Trump's second term. I know we're still in the early days, but in the very start of Trump's term, they had produced a second intelligence report in regard to the possibility of Israel carrying out these strikes. And so what they found, U.S. military support and munitions would likely be needed for an Israeli attack on Iran's heavily fortified nuclear sites, given their complexity, U.S. military officials say. So let's pause there for a second. If Israel carries this out, understand this wouldn't simply be a war between Israel and Iran. This would be a war that would require Americans there in the region, boots on the ground. They would need American military support. Okay, this is based on what U.S. military officials are saying. And of course, it would require weapons that we, American taxpayers, would be paying for, which would really put a damper on Donald Trump's goals of cutting spending. Because that's what we keep hearing about, right? They want.
Nobody's talking about, I mean, that's not the number one problem, okay? Like, I understand that she said that it would require troops on the ground, and then it would mess up his number one thing about cutting spending and taxpayers. The number one thing is that soldiers will die for Israel again. Like, that's the number one thing. Like, bro, there's nothing else. Like, it's not even just, please, like, let's keep it real, bro. They print money. They print money for war. War is, like, the thing that makes money for this country, okay? So let us not act like this would really be necessarily a damper for the taxpayer all the way. They'll just print more of that fiat money for this war, right? I'm just keeping it real. Yeah, okay, it will hit us. That's just, you know what? That is not even part of my equation. My equation is this. Why do we need to get involved in a war that has nothing to do with us? Nothing to do with us. How much more blood do we need to shed for this place? That's the problem.
Want to cut spending in order to justify the tax cuts that he wants to extend and the additional tax cuts he wants to add, which would lower the corporate tax rate from 21% to 15%. Republicans claim they're worried about the national debt. It costs over $1 trillion a year to service our national debt. So I, too, am actually a little bit concerned about where we stand with national debt. So this idea that we should continue aiding and abetting whatever Israel wants to do in the Middle East with our military and our taxpayer dollars is ludicrous. And really, at this point, I mean, Israel is saying, oh, we've totally weakened Iran. We've totally weakened Iran. Hezbollah, we've wiped out their leaders. Hamas, we've wiped out their leaders. Even some of Iran's military capabilities, Israel claims, they've managed to weaken. Okay.
They haven't. I'll tell you that much, they haven't. But they are right with this much, right? Because when it comes to Bashar al-Assad, you know, a lot of people, this was the weirdest thing to me I saw online. There's people who were excited that Bashar was removed from power. And look, I don't live in Syria. I don't know how it is to live under dictatorship or anything like that, right? But what I did know was that Israel had wanted Bashar removed for at least over a decade, right? And Syria is on our, you know, on our 7 countries list and all of that, you know. And so when you remove Bashar and you place the Julani, you know, in place of Bashar, well, now Israel definitely gets what they want in Syria. There's no pushback whatsoever, even the slightest bit. So that's out the way. And so they've strategically removed everything to get to Iran. And if you remember, like I was bringing up the Wesley Clark 7 countries, Iran is there. They didn't forget about Iran. They didn't forget about Iran. Listen, at the end of the day, here we are. And Americans are still, they sit here and make up excuses for why I guess this stuff should happen. Some Americans, you know, are we really about to do this again? Like so what are we gonna, like? Is there gonna be like a false flag or something to get us like really fully involved? You know. Look, God is in control. I'm not gonna get upset or anything. What's meant to be, you know, we will be okay. But this is why this right here is why I abstained my vote because once I saw the pressures on the executive branch of our country from another country, I was like, oh, nobody can get anything done when, when there's this big monkey on the back of America. Right? So I'm not for it. I'm not promoting it. I'm not getting involved with it. This is just, I think I'm actually at a loss of words. I'll see you guys at the next one. Bye.